There you go.
Computer, poor computer was asked to do too much, but we're live now.
All right. Well, Dale, I don't know about you, but it's been an interesting first 7 weeks of the season.
Man, has it ever. Some surprises? What's been your biggest surprise this season so far?
I was really surprised with how good, like in 1A, Valdez Drawn, Jimmy Drawn. That's a
Mm-hmm.
team I didn't see them being that big of a factor in the 1A, and they're 6-1. They just beat Mitchell, so that's my pick in 1A. And also I'll throw in Northmore also. I think Northmore's kind of shocked a lot of people about how good they are.
Right.
And in 2A, um, it's hard to say on that. I don't think there's anybody that really stands out that's really shocking. Maybe Green Central, to be honest with you. And in 3A, it's not really anybody that's. I mean, it's the usual players. Maybe Northern Nash. I know they've been stronger of recent, but I didn't think they would be quite as high as they are.
Right.
And in 4A, um, maybe Millbrook, maybe Grimsley to a certain degree. I mean, I think they've always been good, but or at least recent, but they seem to be a little bit better than I thought. How about you?
My thoughts are kind of the opposite of what we might think about surprises. Jim, I'm a little surprised at how we appear to be down in football this year in North Carolina, and it appears to be at least in 4A. I don't maybe across the state in general, but definitely in 4A. I don't think
Right.
4A football is has the same number of top power, and even as is the top power, are they as powerful as say many of the years that we've seen in the past? I just think we're a little down, so that's surprising me a bit.
Richmond, having struggled so much this year, surprised me. To the
Yeah,
extent that Richmond struggles, surprised me.
I hate to say we could see it coming because it's happened very quickly, but because of the population, workforce changes, population, and because of that impact in Richmond County, I can see I can see that being the issue. Very
Right.
much like what impacted A.L. Brown, but it's happened
It's,
like that. Um,
yeah, it's like someone turned off the faucets and there's
yeah,
no more water coming out. And
exactly.
we saw that happen to Concord over the last 4 or 5 years. Also, I
Yeah,
mean, Concord was a great program. All of a sudden, it's like somebody turned the water off.
yeah.
We saw that with Albemarle like 7, 8
Paget
years ago.
leaves, and yeah, we've seen it with a number of programs that the change with these schools has been dramatic in that they go from very good to you know it just like falls on their face, not a gradual.
Right.
uh, so it's kind of good to see teams like Thomasville picking it up after they fell down. um, but at least it looks like are picking things back up. um, we could say it was a surprise what the way Shelby started, but
Right.
Shelby had a tremendously difficult schedule when they started the season. So, they went up against big power, big power mongers, shall we say. So, I don't think it's any surprise that they have picked, their wins up and will continue to pick their wins up. And we'll be talking about them in late November, probably. So,
I agree. One thing I will say though that is kind of surprised me also, which is on the positive side, I've seen more fans in the stands than I've had even before the pandemic.
So I
What?
noted last night, Monday night, I went to Albemarle to see Cox Mill and Albemarle play, and I had not been to Albemarle, not Albemarle, excuse me, Kannapolis,
Kannapolis.
and I had not been to Brown in a handful of years, 5 years or so. And one of the things that I remembered, not the last time I went, but one of the last times that I was there was when it was a Saturday game and Brown played Vance. So on a Saturday, there was hardly anybody in the stands. So I thought, well, a Monday night game, gosh, it's going to be bad. But it turns out it was their homecoming game.
Mm.
And they didn't fill the stands up, but they had a decent crowd, not decent by old, Brown standards by any means, but
Right.
they maybe had 2/3 of this of the home side, 2/3 to I can't say I don't know if I'd say 3/4, but there were places you could go sit in the stands.
And that's pretty good for a Monday, even with homecoming thrown
It
in there.
is it is pretty good. So I was a little surprised at that. I was expecting there to be, if there were 100 people in the stands, I was going to be shocked. So
Right.
that was a surprise. Good game from getting to watch some athletes play, etc. Not a good game if you're a Brown fan, but boy, Cox Mills they've got some ball players.
What was the
They
final
sure
score
do.
of that game?
50, was it 59-35, maybe? 59, something like that. Upper 50s to low 30s, somewhere, something like that. I forget the
And,
exact
and
score, but
did Cox Mill actually win that game, or is it
oh
A.L.
yeah,
Brown
yeah,
win?
yeah, yeah. They won
Cox
the game. Yeah.
Cox Mill won the game. Wow.
Yeah, they were just the better team. Um, Brown was without some players, I understand, for suspension, but that might have made a little bit of a difference. But they started, I think it was the sophomore quarterback's first game starting, and he shows promise, but he had a few, first game jitters, we'll call them. So
Right.
kind of hard to win a ball game against a high level opponent when you don't have all your arsenal, and Brown's depth is way down. Um, and gosh, they seemed like they had the play, probably the player numbers was in the 30s.
Hmm.
So just kind of a shame to see what has happened to A.L. Brown, um, from a turnout of fans to a turnout of numbers of players, obviously records, and uh, I think Cabarrus County's seeing a little bit of. You're going to see Cox Mill, I think, become more and more of a power in that county.
Right. I mean, who's the best team in Cabarrus County right now? Would it be Hickory Ridge or
It
Cox
might be
Mill
Cox
or
Mill.
Cox Mill?
Hickory Ridge is good. It's obvious. I think it's going to come down to those two schools,
Right.
and
And J.M. Robinson for a two-way school's got a good program.
yep, yep.
Central's fallen down again, and I think
Northwest.
Northwest Cabarrus they might actually be siphoning some of that talent from A.L. Brown. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know everything. I had a conversation on this topic with Coach Newsom back a few years ago, and he he made mention that Cox Mill area was just kind of like the right chemistry of families to be able to produce a lot of kids that would play. He said it's very much like the neighborhoods and I guess area that Butler pulled a lot from when he was at Butler. So
All right.
you're not like, I was thinking about my neighborhood that I live in, that I raised kids in, and across the street there are some young people that moved in, but for a long time here in this community, about 20 homes or so, there were no kids. So when all the kids here grew up, there was not you know an influx of new kids because none of the families moved out. So if you're in those environments where families can move in and out a lot, apartments, etc., you're going to have more. You'll have more players to choose from,
Right.
year after year after year. I think in the Cox Mill area, he, from what he indicated to me, kind of met that criteria. So,
Gotcha. Well, Dale, I don't know if you want to go ahead and I can share my screen. I've actually got it on an Excel spreadsheet, our top tens,
well,
and also got it compared to max preps.
I've got even better.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I went one better this time.
Okay, cool. And I also have the week 8 matchups that I can share later on.
Okay. So what I
Uh,
did this time, Jim, is I've got the Carolina varsity stuff there in the center, as you can see. And then I had the max preps on the right. And then I have the RPI rankings, which the NCHSAA is using for seeding purposes.
right.
Now, I just took and ranked the top 10 teams based on the RPIs, East and West. Obviously, RPI is only going to be used for seeding, and there'll be the East RPI and there'll be the West RPI. But since RPI is one objective manner of looking at a team, I thought it might be interesting to throw it in here just to get some other data to make people mad.
Oh yeah.
So we got three now. So now we've got three sets of data here that can make people mad.
Oh yeah. And they want to get mad. I mean, people like having little hissy fits, and I'm not going to ever watch Carolina Varsity ever again because you don't have my team ranked high enough.
Exactly.
Like,
You didn't rank my
whatever.
team at all, or they're not ranked high enough. And
Some teams if they're ranked number 1, they don't understand why they're not ranked 0. I mean, that's just it just blows my mind away. They take it so personally too.
exactly. I think the biggest thing out of all of this that I'm looking at here in 1A, and it's all about who you play and strength of schedules, etc. But
Right.
Tarborough's not from a power rating because their schedule is a little bit weaker. As you can see, their schedule ranking is minus 20.8.
Right. That kills them right there.
Yeah, that causes them to fall down. But you can only play who's on your schedule, and you can only beat who's on your schedule. So,
Well, if you look on the very west, the RPIs though, you got
yep,
exactly 3 teams that play. They'll play in the Eastern Division. You got Tarboro, Riverside Martin, and Northmore.
yep,
That's exactly the 3 that we have, pretty much in that order. We actually have Northampton also, Northampton County in there.
mm-hmm,
And then you go to the max preps. You got Tarboro 7, and I think that's the only team that's ranked in the top 10. I don't see any other teams in the East in the top 10. I mean, it is very west loaded this year.
It is very west loaded, exactly, very very west loaded, which is to be this heavily loaded seems to be a little bit of a surprise, not a major surprise, maybe, but a
Well,
little bit.
over the last 10 years, though, you've had teams like James Keenan that played 1A. Now they're 2A. You got Walls Rose Hill that was 1A. Now they're 2A. Edenton Homes, they were 1A. Now they're 2A.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to Southwest Onslow, they were 1A for a long time. Now they're 2A. A lot of the really good 1A teams in the last 10 years in the East are now playing 2A. Now you have Tarboro, and then you have a team like Pender will come up, or this year it looks like Northmore. You had Pamlico a few years back. It's to me, it's kind of a moving door. There's going to be a lot of fluctuation because there's a lot of rural
Right.
schools in that area. I mean, you did have Plymouth. I mean, and then as soon as Plymouth and Crestwell consolidated to become Washington County, they just fell off the map. I mean, had more kids, still would play in the small 1As, and they just couldn't do it. Of course, they lost Coach Cody, too. He retired, resigned about 3 games into the 2017 season. That just hadn't been right.
So really the only big thing here, Jim, is look at Drawn at 8. You got
I
them
like
at 8.
Drawn.
Yeah.
I like Drawn a lot. They beat Mitchell pretty good on Friday, or was it Thursday nights? They beat them like 59-36 or 38 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mitchell could not stop them. They just did not have the ponies to keep up with them. And I mean, for a 1A team, I think Drawn is the team that, if I want someone like Robbinsville or Mount Airy, I wouldn't take them too lightly.
Is anybody saying anything before we move to the next?
Oh, let me check here. Let me go back here.
I'll turn it off a minute so I can see. Where's it at? Oh.
Looks like we have a couple of comments. Garrett said not as strong as usual. He also said that this, like he said, is cyclical about the talent going up and down. Looks like Shane said he couldn't join today, but he'll just watch and listen.
Yeah, and Shane, you can, if you're listening, you can just type in some comments if you got things you want us to talk about as we go through this. So I'm going to take it then to 2A.
Okay.
And let's see here. Let's go here to the 2A. Let's not have both of them up there, Dale.
Wow, they have Princeton at number 1 in the RPIs and number 9 in the power rankings. I knew about number 9 in the power rankings, but
number 9 in the power rankings. Yep, number 1 in the RPI, because the power rankings goes through the whole state, and thus its numbers are very, very deep. That data comes from. And the RPI is only your opponents and your opponent's opponents. And that's it. So not as deep. An interesting one that you really might want to start thinking about is Pine Lake Prep. Their number 5 RPI rating is, I didn't look to see where they come up in power rankings, but I imagine they're probably in the top 15, I would think. I'm not positive, but they've got a decent RPI.
Yeah, that Pine Lake Prep, I think they play in that 1A, 2A conference with mostly the charter schools.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to really get a good feel.
I understand
about them.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go into Max Preps and find out.
See where they are in the power ranking of 2A. I would think. I don't think I still have mine up.
Let's see here. 2A.
My guess is probably going to be somewhere between 13 and 17.
They're 18th.
Oh, I missed it by 1. Okay. So that seems about right, just looking at what their RPI is. Um,
And I'm gonna look at their schedule, see who they beat. And they beat Thomas Jefferson, who's undefeated. Or excuse me, they haven't won a game yet. They beat Thomas Jefferson 21-0. Beat Bessemer City 21-0. They beat Star Mountain. Now beating Star Mountain, that's a good win. They beat them 21-2. Beat Mountain Island Charter 30-0. Mountain Island Charter's down a little bit this year.
yeah,
Uh, Beat Winston-Salem Prep, and they beat Christ the King. Looking at the rest of their schedule, I don't know if they have a team that's going to. They got to play Bishop McGinnis 1-5. They got to play Carver, Lake Norman Charter, and Community School of Davidson. It's always surprising to see Carver as a 1A school. I remember back when
right.
they were 3A. Carver's 2-5, and let's see, Lake Norman Charter. I haven't seen them much out of them. They're 3-3 this year.
And
And
anybody that's been questioning about Shelby's in the top 10 now. Look for them to climb the ladder.
yeah, they will be better. Well, they
Shelby's
have.
gonna be that team that we're gonna be talking about in in late November, probably into
Right.
December.
Yeah, I agree with you. Chase and Shelby play the last week of the season. I think it's October 28th. That's the
Burns and
one we're going
Shelby.
to. Shelby and
Yeah,
Shelby and
that'll
Chase.
be a big game.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are probably picking picking Shelby to win that game. So,
I mean, you know what? The 2A is loaded this year. There's those top 10 teams. Green Central. They've impressed me on paper. I don't know how good they are, how much they're going to be when it comes to come playoff time. But they're 7-0 right now. I mean,
right,
they're solid. And I mean, those teams. A lot of times, you got one really good team that rises above each other, and then the playoffs will lose in the first or second round. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to Green Central, but it might have that feel. But those top 8 and throw in Shelby, you got some pretty good teams in there.
exactly. And Monroe's going to be a team to reckon with as well. I see they're number 2 in power ranking. Not so high in RPI, so I don't know where they are in RPI. I'd have to go back and look that, but they didn't crack the top 10 in RPI, which means that they're playing weak opponents. And if you look at their strength of schedule, it's a -7.1. So that reflects the having a weaker RPI.
Right.
Where's Chase at in RPI? I don't know. I'd have to go to the NCHSAA website and see. But seeing that Chase's strength of schedule is a -21, my guess is their RPI is real low.
Yeah.
Probably in the 20, maybe just an guesstimate, but looking at that strength of schedule, I would probably guess 6-0, and they're probably somewhere in the upper teens to lower 20s in RPIs, just a guess.
Well, the team that really surprised me, and they're really not on my radar at this point, is Bunker Hill at 6-0. They're both number 7 in the RPIs and the Max Prep power rankings.
Right.
I'm interested about how good they are. I guess they play. I guess I'll play Maiden before too long. Let me check to see what their schedule is. I know one time Bunker Hill and Maiden were in the same conference. It may
So
not be that case
they're
anymore.
playing a tougher schedule than Chase. They're playing almost a similar schedule to Monroe, strength of schedule, it looks like. RPI of 65. Of course, one of your heavy weightings is your own record.
Right.
Thus,
Yeah,
that helps.
it's like a 30%, 40%, and 30% with the RPIs. I forgot which one is 40%. I can't remember if it's your win loss record or your opponent's win loss record. But yeah,
We
the
still
teams
go
that
like say, I speak in Henderson. Do we get their RPIs or how's it work? So the way the RPIs are going to work, or the way seeding works, is when your conference, you're good. You're going to be seated ahead of non all the non-conference winners, no matter what their RPI is. But conference winners get seeded first, and they'll be seeded on record, and then I think RPI, depending if they have equal records, then RPI would break a tie. And then after that's done, you're going to get seeded on RPI. So having a good RPI will help. If you don't win a conference, it'll help you get a higher seeding. One of the things you'll learn about RPI, and you really see it in power rankings, but in RPI at least, it doesn't necessarily hurt so bad when you lose to a good team,
right.
because your good team's going to have a good record. Their
And
RPI is going to, their winning record's going to be high, so that's going to
on the
help
flip
you.
side, winning against a really mediocre or lousy team is not going to help you
Exactly.
that much.
Exactly. The trade off might be you actually come out better losing to the really good team. If that seems odd, but it does pay to play powerful teams. You want wins, but you also, as far as RPI is concerned, if you're just looking at objective data, it doesn't hurt to play really good teams. And
Right.
Salisbury's hanging in there in the middle of the pack. They're at 7. They're not ranked in the power rankings, and they don't have the RPI ranking either. I don't think I
Right.
see any other really shockers here, but the big note thing is Shelby's back in.
Right. I agree
How
with you.
come Shelby isn't in the top 10 in RPI, especially with the stronger competition? Because they aren't. I mean, RPI is 100% objective data. So it's your wins and a number gets multiplied against it. Your opponent's win percentage, a number gets multiplied against it. And your opponent's win percentage and a number gets multiplied against it. It works the same for everybody. So,
right.
uh, so that's why they're not in the top 10, because, well, those other people have better RPIs than them.
Well,
Um,
we got a message from Bob Duckworth. He's our friend over in Catawba County.
yep.
About Clinton still needs some consideration at 5-1. I do agree with Bob. They're a team that's definitely on the watch list for me.
Uh huh.
I'm looking at Max Preps. They have them ranked 23, which I think is too low. I would probably have them around 14, 15 or so if I had to guess. They're
Well,
they're a fun team to
remember
watch. So,
remember that Max Preps is just it's just based on data, so they don't put anything else in. So it is
right,
based on how many points you score against your opponents, and then that gets carried throughout the across the whole state, and they try, that algorithm tries to normalize things, and
right.
how good of a job it does. We both know that it can be done better. So take it all with a grain of salt. Another way to get mad. Sometimes objectiveness is, uh, or excuse me, sometimes subjectiveness can hit on it. Max
You know,
Prep is a joke. Well,
with with
We
max
say it's
preps,
a
I don't
joke,
look.
but it's just an algorithm. There is no human saying put this person over that person.
I
Um,
think when it comes to max preps is how you use the data. If you're looking at it, if you're going to use a microscope, which I know a lot of people do, you're going to use it wrong because it's not something that you can analyze well. If you take
no,
it
you
from a
don't have enough
telescope, you
data
take it from a
analyzed deeply. That's the
yeah, you
problem.
can't. You can look at it from a surface, but that's about it. If you look at it from a global point of view, it helps out a little bit. But really, what I do on that, if I look at it, and I don't base the rankings on max preps or anything else, but I try to bucket my teams. Like you got the elites, you got the next two elites, and you got the dark horses or contenders, whatever you want to call them. And then you got another group, and then you have the teams that are not going to make the playoffs. I kind of bucket everybody that way. Uh, but the difference between a 37 team and the 29th team is it's all by interpretation, very subjective.
Well, we have to, one of the things we really have to sit down and think about, and this becomes more true as we move up into the bigger classifications. The field gets bigger of teams that are real close together and could beat another team. So, when you get up to 4A, you could see a number 40 team beating a number 20 team. Or a number 15 team because the
Right.
field is that close to each other. Whereas down in 1A, you're not going to see that happen. There's more separation. A question was asked. David Simmons asked, "Is Tarboro still 1A?" Tarboro is going to be your 1A state champion. That's I think both Jim and I believe that right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
I give
yeah,
Tarboro probably a 70% chance of winning the 1A.
exactly. I
And
think
the
they
reason I'm not saying 100%, who knows what can happen.
Well, it's high school,
It's
exactly.
high school.
Other things can happen. Okay, let's look at the 3A.
Smithfield Selma, number one in RPI. And this is a
Yeah,
team a lot of people don't know. They went through like 3 years where they didn't even win a game. And it hasn't been that long ago. It's like 6, 7 years ago. Right now they're sitting at 6-0, and they're number one in the RPIs. They're number 8 in the Max Prep rankings, and I don't have them ranked yet.
right.
And the team that, if I had to guess on that, I think Smithfield Selma could probably give Lee County and Oak Grove a battle for their money.
Uh-huh.
Possibly Dudley, Eastern Alamance, possibly. They're in that group. I mean, they're not that far out. I'd probably have them more like 14th or 15th right now.
So if you look at it, Ledford has, I'm just looking at strength of schedules. And so Northern Nash that's really interesting. Northern Nash at number 2 has a worse strength of schedule than does Smithfield Selma. Look at that. They're both 6-0. So there's some other weighting being given. It's in scores. It's in how
Well,
big.
I think Smithfield Selma has a stronger one. They're at only minus 4.1, and Northern Nash
Yeah,
is
theirs is stronger than Northern Nash.
yeah.
So I think what's happening here though is Northern Nash must be beating teams by more points and thus giving them a higher power
Big
rating.
amounts.
18 versus 27. But uh, I'm going to the Kings Mountain game Friday night, Kings Mountain and South Point. So our number 1 and number 4 will be going against each other. And oddly enough, Max Press Power Rankings number 1 and number 4 are going against each other. And if you look at that, Jim, so this is what I like to see. If you look at the top 4 in the top 4 of the power rankings, it's the same teams. this just though we don't look for this to be the case, it just kind of lends some credibility to the subjectiveness of the subjective data that's sitting in the middle there,
Right.
being based on experience. Um,
Right.
so
You know,
that's
when, when
cool,
we when we do the rankings, we do them based on performance, but also what we see as their potential for the future. I mean, I always take in mitigating circumstances. Like if somebody was
right?
playing without a great running back one week and they beat somebody by 7 instead of 24 points, I can understand that. But it's it's for us. It's definitely subjective.
Exactly, but experience allows us to weigh certain things in to what we see.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly right.
it's again, I'm going to say, I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. It's kind of nice seeing Rose hanging around in some rankings. And, I kind of have fond memories of watching Rose play in some state championship games. And I don't know about fond memories, but I have memories since I can remember they're fond.
If you look at the East West comparison in our rankings, we have 5 from the East and 5 from the West. And I
Mhm.
want to mention that because I think there's more parity in 3A between the two East and West. Although I think Kings Mountain right now is, I mean, a couple touchdowns better than Northern Nash, who's our top team from the East.
So I'm gonna agree with you on the parity. And if I had to guess, I would think the 3A and then maybe 2A are probably the more what am I looking to say here? Of all the four classifications, 3A is probably has the most parity, and
Right.
2A might be next. I think there's going to be a lot of competition in 3A. I do think that Kings Mountain is the favorite here myself, but yeah, we're going to find out. I see there we're going to find out how strong South Point is Friday. We're going to find out how strong Kings Mountain is too. I mean, that ball is going to bounce both ways, and I just cannot believe that there's going to be a big gap game here in score. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big, but I will say this: the South Point fans are not helping yourself out. I've seen so much chest thumping over the last week, like basically just dismissing about how good Kings Mountains are is and so forth, and a lot of bulletin board material that's going out there. And
Right.
I don't mind being confident, but when you reach that part of cockiness, it comes back to hurt you. And I'll tell you this right now: there's been games that have been lost because their fans have been overconfident.
Well, as
It gets
long as it
players
doesn't
mad.
bleed down into the team, um, the biggest thing I think for Friday night is going to be, will South Point be able to generate offense against that defense, that Kings Mountain defense? Um, I think I'm hoping. Let's put it that way. I hope it's a great ball game. I hope it's a one score game because that's what I like to see.
Right.
I see there that East Lincoln's a great team in 3A. Well, they're sitting there at number 2. They're number 3 in the power rankings. And they've got a decent RPI as well. They're sitting there at 8 in the RPI. So, if you average all that together, that's an 8 and a 2. And then, yeah, that's a top 5 team averaged all 3 of those together. You're probably
Right.
going to have a top 5 team regardless. So, yeah, I think data backs that statement up. I'm
Well, I
looking at the
agree with you.
comments being made. Um,
One team I always want to mention also is Ledford. It's a team that I have right. if I had a number 11, if we were doing a top 11, they right now Ledford to be number 11.
Okay.
Uh, I'm looking forward to that Oak Grove Ledford game in 2 weeks on October 14th.
Uh-huh.
That's going to show a lot about both teams right there. I mentioned that because right now I think Oak Grove might just be a tiny bit better than Ledford, but I just don't know.
Right. All right, let's look and see what we got sitting here in the big 4A. So
Look at that. They're number 1 and 2, all the same. You see that? I mean,
yeah.
they're not in the same order, mind you, but
Yeah, Huff has found a way to get a better, well, I shouldn't, the Huff has found a way to get a better power ranking because they played a very tough schedule, as has Chambers. And Huff's only loss is to Dutch Fork. So that's not a bad team to lose for. And that was a close ball game. They got down in the game, but almost came back, and well, they made a game of it in the fourth quarter. Just ran out of time. So Grimsley sits here at 3 with RPI, 5 with power ranking, and you've got them at 5 here. 8.3 strength of schedule, so they don't have a terribly weak schedule. That's representative of their RPI.
right.
Question is asked, do I think Chambers can win state? I think
Yes.
certainly
I think
they can win state, but I think it's my thought is it's going to be a little bit tougher for them. They're obviously a one-score game with Huff. A team I'm really interested in seeing finish out this season and how they do in the playoffs is Newbern.
Right.
I've liked them all season, and I think they are a team to be reckoned with in 4A. So when you look at Chambers and Weddington's another team that Weddington and Charlotte Catholic both are teams that can do well in 4A, and Cardinal Gibbons is, they're hanging in there. Tough schedule. I know they're not in our top 10, but they're probably bubble for top 10.
Yeah, I think so. If I had to do 11, 12, and 13 right now, I'd throw, or maybe top 15, I'd throw Mallard Creek in there from the west.
Yeah.
I throw Wake Forest in there from the east, Cardinal Gibbons from the east, and Rollsville from the east. And I'm trying to think who else I might throw in there from. But
See,
there's like
that's a lot of teams bunched up together there. So I think in 4A, when you drop, the gaps aren't as big as we are accustomed to seeing, but there are gaps between those teams that are up at the top and those teams that are down at the bottom of the top 10.
Oh, I agree with you.
Pretty decent gap there.
To me, the top 3 or 4 teams, well, they'll say throw the top 5 teams in there. They're in one bubble. Weddington Catholic are kind of in their own bubble, to be honest with you. And then you got Millbrook, Hillside, Cleveland, and really probably 6, 7, or 8 more teams that are just kind of bumped up there altogether.
Yeah, this is a conference, this is a classification that is going to see a lot of beat up in the West, a lot of beating of, just physical games between teams in the West, and advancing in the West might be very, very difficult. not might be, it will be very difficult. And teams are probably going to face injuries or weakened players for the following week because of the physicality, the physicalness that we will see in those games. In the East, I don't think has that same barrier to regionals that the West has.
Oh, I agree with you. And looking at Watauga, I mean, I see that they have them number 5 in their RPIs. Uh, there's no way I'd have Watauga even close to the top 10.
Right.
Uh, they, I know they played Maiden really close, and they played Mitchell, who's a 1A school, barely beat them. And to be honest with you, it was kind of a fluke or some couple bad calls that went in Watauga's favor to
Where do
get that
they
win.
where do they sit in the Max Preps power rankings for
Oh,
4A?
you know what? Let's check here.
Take a look and see. My guess is going to be 19,
19.
23.
Okay. I'm gonna say
19 to
around.
23.
I'm gonna say they're lucky to be in the top 25.
Okay. I'm giving
And
them
let's see.
I'm giving them some grace. I'm bouncing up to 19 to 23.
Watauga 28.
28. Okay, missed it by 5.
But I mean, it's again those you got those teams from like probably from 20th to about 32. They're all bunched in there
Right,
together. It's
exactly. Yeah. So
Williamsville Road's another team that's up there.
while they're 5-1, what's their strength of schedule, Jim? The very
Watauga
right
strength
hand number,
4.1.
4.1. Okay. Yeah, so when you look at that 4.1 and then you look at these 27, 17, 30, 17, 10, 20, you see some pretty these teams in the top 10 have played some very, very, very tough games. And I've seen many of the games these teams have played and actually have attended some of the games that these teams have played in. The level of football is much greater. Now, Mooresville, what do you think about Mooresville?
I don't think much of them. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny about it, but I mean, I think they're a decent team. I'm looking; they have them ranked number 13th in Max Preps. I think that's a little bit too high, to be honest with you. Uh, I probably would put Watauga or Roseville probably maybe 20th, 21st, something like that. Kind of the same place I'd put like Lake Norman.
Yeah.
I
The
mean, I
only
think
thing
Lake
I
Norman's a
can,
good team.
again, say about that is maybe as the season goes on and scores are scored, it may adjust, but it's an objective ranking.
What's your feeling about?
I want our algorithm back, Jim, because
Yeah,
our algorithm. I know
it's
it wasn't.
great.
I know it wasn't ours, but you know what I'm saying. The one that was
Yeah,
used
no,
in the football report was great. We need to get that back because we can have a good objective data to go with our thoughts. Uh, Question here is: do you think Maiden will win state in football?
no.
That's a tough road there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get through. You got to get through Shelby or Chase. You got to get through Reidsville. You got to get through
Burns,
Monroe, Burns.
Monroe. There's a lot of
I
good
mean,
teams that have to go through.
yeah,
There's a bit of a gauntlet in the West in 2A.
yeah. I mean, you got 8 teams that are just kind of pretty darn good in 2A from the
Right. I mean,
West.
it's possible, but uh, you're going to have to play. Maiden's going to have to play their best football through the playoffs, not sustain injuries. And so, best football means both performance and execution. And by that I mean not making mistakes when it comes to execution, and then performance being the athletes are just giving their all every game and able to achieve their all. It's hard to win state championships, and then when
Well,
you
I
got
want to talk
competition, yeah, go ahead.
about 4A. What do you think about Butler? I mean, to me, there's another team.
I like Butler. I like
Butler
Butler a lot. I'm
Butler's
telling
another one
you
of those
now.
teams I have out there. I've mentioned Mallard Creek, but I also have Butler kind of ranked up there, right close. And I mean, you can
Butler's
make a
better
hit.
than Butler's better than Mallard Creek, in my opinion. Butler
Gotcha.
is. We will see because they will be playing Catholic, but Butler is, I think, on par with Catholic and Weddington, and maybe slightly better. Uh, I really like Butler. I saw them in the Providence game, and I've seen Coach Hales after a lot of ball games, and he just was so excited after that game for the way his team played. And of course, they had just shut down who was at the time and probably still is the state's leading rusher. Um, and of course, they were ecstatic about that. But I'm gonna tell you, Jim, that's a physical team.
Right.
They are physical. This Butler team looks good. So that's a third round and later ball club easily, and could beat the Chambers.
Exactly right.
I think they could give a Chambers and a Huff a ball game, which probably means they could give East Forsyth and Newbern ball games. If Newbern's as good as we seem to think they are, and you and I agree on what we think, on how good we think Newbern is.
Right.
I'm right there with you on that. So yeah, I like Butler. Uh, I would put Butler in the top 10.
Yeah, they're definitely a top 10 worthy team. I mean, the one thing that hurt them the beginning of the season is losing to New Hanover 29-28, I believe was the score,
Yeah,
28-27.
I
And I
kind
don't
of
know if there's any mitigating circumstances that hasn't been communicated to me at least.
I kind of wash that. Sometimes things happen, and I haven't asked if there were any specific circumstances that don't exist now. I didn't ask Coach Hales that. Um, I'm basing on what I've seen physically and their physicalness and relating it to Weddington and
Right.
to Catholic. And they're on par with and maybe better. I see here Monroe is going to win state.
They're a contender.
They're a
They are
contender, but
definitely a contender.
they're going to have to beat Shelby.
Yeah. Monroe lost to Porter Ridge, I believe, which is a 4A school. And
Yeah,
no, there's no shame losing to Porter Ridge. I think they're 4-2. A very good program.
they're a
I
good
thought
program.
I thought Monroe would still beat them, and I actually thought it would be maybe one or two scores, and it wasn't that way. So, that's the reason why I dropped them down a couple weeks ago. But
Right. They
so
they're a contender to win, most definitely. I think we've said that almost every week. And
right.
but
So
Shelby is one that while they are ranked low right now, we know that we just don't assume they're going to finish 10th. We assume they're going to finish one.
right. So Dale, I was going to say if you want me to go over the week 8 schedule, I can share my
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, let
And
me switch back to this.
all right, let's see if I can pull mine up here. I'm going to show your presentation to viewers. And huh.
Yeah, Jeff says they still have stiff competition with Shelby, Burns, Chase, Maiden. Yep, it's 2A's a bit of a gauntlet in the West.
You know what? Let me
So
try something. I'm trying to share my screen, and I don't know if you can if I can share my screen now or not.
you should be able to.
I see one that says presentations,
Yeah, you
but
should see it should be the third one. It's got an arrow going up right beside the
okay.
video icon.
Yeah, I have oh, there we go. Thank you. I am
That's
blind.
okay.
I am blind, says the man here. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let me turn it on. Jim, let me turn it back off. Can you turn it on?
Let's see if I can turn it on here.
You should be able to. Is there not a toggle switch?
There's no toggle switch for me.
Okay. I'll check into that. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we got in the 1A got Tarboro. They're hosting South Creek, who is 0-7. That is a what you call a running clock game right there. It's not going to be any challenge on that one. Robbinsville host Cherokee at 1-5. I think Robbinsville will win that game with ease also. Now I highlighted Andrews. They're hosting Swain County. I know Andrews is really good. Swain County is a name, and they actually have played a pretty tough schedule this year. I think Andrews will win this game, but do not be surprised if Swain County comes up and shocks people. They played a good game against Robbinsville. I think it was last week, and that one could be pretty good. Mount Airy, they'll be at North Stokes. They'll have a running clock on that game. Eastern Randolph versus Trinity. Trinity is a two-way school. They're 4-2, but the record's a little bit deceiving. Not the strongest schedules. Eastern Randolph should win that game pretty easily. Northmore will have a field day against Seaforth. Northampton and a squeaker against By. Drawn at Madison, that's probably, it may not be a running clock, but they'll probably win by at least 30 is my guess. Thomasville versus South Davidson. Now South Davidson has improved this year. They have won 3 games. They could be 4-3 right now instead of 3-4. That's being said, Thomasville will win that game by probably 4 or 5 touchdowns. And then Riverside Martin is got the week off. Yeah. Anything that kind of interests you about that, Dale? The 1A?
No, I think I agree with you on all the picks. Yeah, there's no.
So in the 2A,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the 2A, we've got 5 teams that are on bye, so not many games to watch. And even the games they're playing, they're not going to be that great. Chase does have to go to Brevard to play. Brevard is 3-3. I expect Chase to win that game by a couple scores. Burns will have a running clock against Thomas Jefferson. I highlighted this game right here: Salisbury East versus East Davison. Salisbury, East Davison is not as good as Salisbury. They're probably, if both teams played to their potential, Salisbury would win by 3 touchdowns. If Salisbury catches them or naps on this game, East Davison could surprise. I'm going to go with Salisbury, though. I think Salisbury will win that one.
Right.
Madison at Bandy's. I think Maiden should win that one pretty easily. I also highlighted this one right here, Green Central at Washington. Green Central, again, hasn't played that strong of a schedule. Washington is off this year. They're 2-4. And if the game is over, the Pan Pac will be hosting that game over in Little Washington. I think Green Central will win this game, but again, I would not be shocked if we had an upset.
Right. Okay.
So not much again to talk about 2A. Now 3A got some good games here, and I highlight this one. The big one is this doozy here: Kings Mountain versus South Point. I kind of agree with what you said on this. Your observations about that. I think Kings Mountain will win probably. I'm gonna say 17 points. I don't care if the game is
17 points. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hoping not, because I like good close ball games to watch. So I'm hoping it's going to be a close game. I'm picking Kings Mountain to win. Doesn't hurt my feelings if they win by 17 points. Doesn't hurt my feelings if they lose by 17 points. But I don't know. That's a hard place to play. There's a lot of rival here, and I just think it's a one-score game. Maybe last
Okay.
man with the ball. Jeff says 21-14 overtime. So I agree it's going to be I think a low-scoring game, just because of the combination of Kings Mountain's defense and South Point's style of offense is going to, and that's one of the things that's in South Point's favor is clock management, clock control with that offense, keeping the score down some. Remember, one of your best defenses is your offense.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, because your offense can be horrible and put you in bad positions, so they become a bad defense, don't they? If they're putting your defense, if the offense is always giving the opponent the ball on your side of the field, that's not good. That's not going to happen here. South Point will move the ball. They'll move chains. They will utilize clock. But Kings Mountain's defense will bend, and not bend. They'll just buckle when they need to, or not buckle. What's the right word I'm looking for? They'll become a wall when they need to.
Yeah, the steel curtain will come up.
The steel curtain, yeah.
So I think the score is going to be something like 20-3, or maybe 21-6 or something like that.
20-3. Okay, yeah. It's going to be a 17-point game. That's a good pick. I don't know about South Point special teams, which in a game like this where it's low scoring, special teams is always important, but it's going to become even more important in flipping field, and I'm thinking of the punting part of the special teams play. Punting can be very critical in a game like this.
And you should have good weather on Friday.
Well, and they've got a good field there, so they can play in the rain if they want to. It's a good environment. I like Kings Mountain. I see here just before you move on, Jim, it says Newton Conover plays at West Lincoln. Who do you think will win?
West Lincoln.
I would say West Lincoln. Yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, mine too. The next one, East Lincoln at Fred T. Ford. East Lincoln will win that game. With
East
ease.
Lincoln.
Let's see, got another message. Who do you think will win between Forest View and Hunter Haas? I'd say whoever hosts that game. If it's at Haas will win. If it's at Forest View will win. That should be a pretty good game, to be honest with you.
I hadn't looked at it, but my guess would say Huss, but I haven't looked at the game. Jeff, you can tell us better than anyone.
Yeah.
Who's going to win it? And don't be a homer. Just tell the truth. I mean, my guess would be Huss, but I don't know.
Now, the next one here, Northern Nash at Nash Central. I didn't highlight this because I think Northern Nash will win. Mm-hmm. Nash Central is a good team, but I just think Northern Nash is just so much better that even if Northern Nash has an off night, I think they should win that game. We've already talked about South Point and Kings Mountain. Here's another one that I had.
That's going to be a good game right there, I think.
This is the Battle of Greenville.
Yeah, don't you think that'll be a good game?
Oh, I think so. I think it's one of these games that could be with a one-score game.
This is a rival game here, so
I expect a lot of offense. I mean, if I come up and find out this final score something like 50-44 or something like that, it would not surprise me.
Oh, okay.
Those teams can score and score and score. And here's another one here.
Another rival game right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. battle in Fayetteville.
Exactly.
Jack Brett's a 4A school. 71st is a 3A. We're going to find out a lot more about 71st.
71st is that's my question is, are they as good as I think they might be?
I think 71st would win by a touchdown, but you just never know on that. Dudley at Northeast Guilford, I didn't highlight that one. Dudley should win that game. It's over in McLeansville, which is not that far from. Actually, I live probably 45 minutes away from McLeansville.
Right.
I if that would be a decent game to go to if you're in that general area. I think Dudley will win that one. Eastern Alamance will just there'll be a running clock by
Yeah,
the
that will
first,
not
second,
be a
and third
close
quarter.
game.
Now
It's gonna be
here's a game right here: Lee County and Pinecrest. That's going to be a battle.
I like Pinecrest.
I do too.
I don't know who is that who you're picking, Pinecrest?
Yeah, I think Pinecrest will win.
Yeah, I like Pinecrest in that game.
Lee County
I
hasn't
think that'll
played
be
a
a
team
good.
as good
I
as
think that'll be
Pinecrest.
a good ball game.
Oh, I agree. Pinecrest beat Richmond County. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and Richmond County played probably one of their better games this year, if not the best, and Pinecrest still won.
Right.
And Oak Grove and North Davison, this is kind of like the battle of the welcome Northern Durham or Northern Davison County. Oak Grove should win by several touchdowns. North Davison's got some internal problems that they're going to have to iron out.
So I'm going to address this last statement here. I got many opportunities to watch Will Shipley play when he was at Weddington, and he was a great high school player. He is a phenomenal college player. State had no running game. That really hurt them, and of course, Clemson had a good run game with Shipley. But to have watched that kid play in high school, if you never had an opportunity, you really miss seeing something special. He was a great ball player. I think one of the better running backs I've seen play in high school. A.L. Brown, by the way, Jim, they got a kid. I think he's 6'2", about 205, and where's number 22? I don't know his name right now, but what a running back! I'm gonna tell you, he is. That's a phenomenal ball player. He had two runs. He had a 65-yard run, and he had a 65-yard for touchdown, and he had a 70 or 75-yard run for touchdown. Both of them between the guard runs. I'm just mentioning that because not a Nick Maddox, but the kid really played well. I really like that kid.
It's all good stuff here. So I thought we'd go over to 4A. There's a few games I'd watch out. They'll go from the top to the bottom. East Forsyth, they'll have their way with Parklands. Huff at West Charlotte. Dale, if West Charlotte is as good as I heard they were back in July and August, wouldn't they give Huff a run for their money?
Well, what you were hearing back then included some players that aren't there. So, maybe what you were hearing before the season started, the quarterback's down at South Point and Rock Hill, and the running back who's going to Oklahoma is not able to play. West Charlotte plays very good defense for who they are. Now, this is a 3A team people are going to have to worry about a little bit. You you look at that record, and you got to understand these guys are playing Mallard Creek, Huff,
Yeah.
Chambers. They're playing in the toughest conference in the state.
And whoever
So,
wins that between West Charlotte and West Mecklenburg, are they seated with the
so West Charlotte won that ball game.
okay, so West Charlotte
They
would get the
Yeah,
bye
they played
then.
that ball game 2 weeks ago, and West Charlotte won it. So uh, I don't I don't know if that determines the 3A bracket of it or if they do it based on overall wins. But for either team to have more wins than the other, because they all have to go against the same competition, is going to be
Right.
near impossible because West Mecklenburg has to play Huff and Chambers and
Right.
everybody. But what I was going to say here is West Charlotte's got a very, very good defense. So uh, the question in this game is, will their offense will they be able to generate offense against one of the best defenses in the state at Huff? On paper, this game's a 3-score or more difference in ball game. If West Charlotte plays it to 3 scores or under, that's a win, even if they don't win the ball game.
Right.
That's exceeding my expectations.
Gotcha. Well, going down a little bit, New Bern, their 7-0 goes against. It's going to be they're hosting Northside Jacksonville. New Bern will
They'll
win that
be
game
8-0.
easily. Yeah,
8-0
exactly.
after this week.
And Chambers at 4-2, they'll be at Hopewell 1-5.
They'll be
They'll be
5-2
5-2.
after this week.
And Grimsley will be 7-0 after this week when they're at Ragsdale, who's 1-5. Now, here's one I had highlighted: this Weddington versus Porter Ridge. I'm kind of curious about how good Porter Ridge might be. I think Weddington wins by 2 scores, but this game right here just seems like might be a good one.
One of those losses for Porter Ridge was to Hickory Ridge, and I had picked Porter Ridge in that game, and it wasn't really a close game. I've seen Weddington, and Weddington is just like Weddington always is. There's just like there's certain programs that you can just, and Porter Ridge is one of those programs that's kind of highly disciplined football, and but Weddington always adds in that element of physicality that
they're a hard-hitting team. Golly, those guys can hit.
Their physicality is the best in Union County. So I give the edge to Weddington here,
right?
And could see this being a 2-score game. I think Porter Ridge is going to have to have a number of things to go right to play that game close and win it.
Right.
But it's a rival game, so.
Going down to the next one, I always think Charlotte Catholic and Weddington are very similar in just physicality. Yeah. I mean, Catholic's a very physical team also. 5-1, they'll be hosting Garinger. That will be a running clock.
Catholic could play their JV and win this game. I'm sorry, Garinger, but reality is reality.
Here's one for you. Millbrook at Rollsville. Rollsville, I mean, a lot of people had them in the top 10 at the beginning of the season. They had a head coaching change back in June. They still have a lot of talent. Rollsville, they lost to, I forgot who it was, East Forsyth or somebody got rolled them up pretty good at the beginning of the season. They lost another game. But that game right there is at Rollsville. This is a kind of a toss-up, to be honest with you. I think this game could go either way.
Well, I'm leaning Millbrook, but a 1-score to 1.5, which means about 10 points.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's when you start talking about games that can be 2 scores or under, it only takes a thing here or there to make a difference that makes that an overtime game.
Oh yeah, I mean you can do a fumble right on the kickoff return. You could, have
Do an
somebody, a key
onside
player,
kick
do it.
and get it, or muff a punt, or
Fumble the football.
break a punt return or a kick return.
Yeah.
Old
All right.
Jeff
I mean,
said, "See you, Jeff."
see
Jeff,
you, Jeff.
if you're going to Shelby, excuse me, Kings Mountain, I'm sure I'll see you Friday.
One of the other things I've seen this year, having the center get the ball to the quarterback in when they're in a spread formation. Sometimes I've seen, probably in the last 6 games, I've probably seen 15, 16 fumbles because of a bad snap. And almost say of those 16, probably a third of them resulted in a turnover. I mean, those things happen a lot, and it wasn't just the first week of the season. I saw it last week even. I mean, it can be just messy.
My oldest son, my youngest son was a wide receiver. My oldest son was center in a shotgun offense that, we ran shotgun 98% of the time. I understand that. I understand that issue big time, especially when my son hurt his arm and he had to move to guard because he couldn't snap. And then all of a sudden we started seeing, that Alexander Central game in the playoffs, we lost there near 100 yards in offense because of bad snaps, because
Right.
the dumb coaches, I'm sorry, they're friends, but they were dumb that night. They wouldn't go under center. So
Yeah.
shotgun snaps it's not the easiest snap to make. It looks like it is, but it's not. You got to practice it.
Yeah.
You know what really got me Monday night in that Brown Cox Mill game was that the quarterback to running back exchange for A.L. Brown resulted in 2 balls on the ground, and one of them a turnover, and the other one a loss of yardage. In what we would think would be a simple handoff, but because the quarterback was Jim, I'm gonna tell you, people just don't. When you look at wing T offenses, that's not what they were running, though. It's kinda, but when people talk about running offenses and they don't think that there's a lot of skill with the quarterback, they're just so mistaken. One, in exchange from quarterback to running back is not the easiest. It's not something that everybody could do without issue. It should be, and you practice it enough, it is, but that kid had not practiced it enough. And it really costs. So getting a ball from center to quarterback in a shotgun offense is risky. And getting the ball from a quarterback to a running back can be risky.
Right.
Now, last year's Kings Mountain game versus South Point was 24-7. Scored 17 points for the quarter. Kings Mountain lost that third round to Dudley. Next week, Dudley defeated South Point. He thinks it's going to be a 2014 game. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. 20-14. That's what I hope. I'd take a 7-0, 28-21,
Well, one of my
28-27.
favorite scores is like 17-14. Just enough offense to make it interesting, but some really good defense. I love good defense.
To watch. Yeah, I love to watch defense. I like to see big guys on the line do their things,
Right.
both on the defensive and offensive line of scrimmages. I like to see those guys going at it. I love seeing linebackers, make plays. Um, heck, let's just face it. I love seeing kids make plays across the field, but defense is a good thing.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. So going down to the last of the 4As, I got Hillside playing Riverside Durham. Hillside's will be hosting that game. It's a battle in Durham.
Yeah.
Riverside doesn't get that much attention, to be honest with you. In Durham, it's mostly been Hillside this year. I've seen Riverside Durham play. They're a good team. I have that one highlighted. It should be a pretty good one. I think Hillside will win by a couple scores, but do not dismiss a team coached by Corey Lee. He's a
Right.
fine coach. At the number 10, we got Cleveland at Willow Spring, which is a fairly new program. Cleveland will win that with ease.
Willow Spring. I don't really.
It's in Wake County.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about them.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I was going to look and see if there was anything I could see.
I did see one comment about North Stanley. North Stanley has a good team. I appreciate the compliment. I graduated from North Stanley back in 1989. Back then, we won 6 games, and that's in a 4-year period. Went 0-10, 2-8, 3-7, and 1-9.
Express, North Carolina, Willow Spring football. I just don't know anything about this program. How new is it?
I think this might be the very first year.
So they're in Fuquay-Varina?
It's pretty close to there. It's
yeah, they're listed in Fuquay-Varina is what
are they?
Max Prep says. Yeah.
Willow Springs is kind of like a crossroad. It's off of, I can't remember, it's off of Highway 42, whatever, but it's really close to Johnston County.
Oh boy, Newbern waxed them 61-0. Their first game of the season. Garner beat them 69-26. SER beat them 29-0.
Yeah, I've seen Southeast Raleigh play, and I think they lost in a plant running clock earlier on the season. So
they got Cleveland this week, South Garner, then Clayton, and then Fuquay-Varina. They end the season. Okay, I had not heard of them before, so I had to look and see who this is.
Well, you got so many new teams there. You got Green Level, that's kind of Southern Wake County, or not Southern Wake County, kind of Western Wake County. Right. You got South Gardner's been opened up not that long ago. Friendship got opened up probably 7 years ago or so. You got Roseville that was opened up maybe 10, 12 years ago. A lot of new high schools in Wake County because it's booming.
See here, we got another comment. Oh, State plays Florida State this week. Could be a good ball game.
I saw Florida State play this last weekend against Wake Forest. Let's put it this way: State will have an easier time against Florida State's defense than they did against Clemson's defense.
State just couldn't run the ball against Clemson. No. It's just no run game. And State's an RPO offense. And if you can't run, then, the rest of your offense is just not going to work. So
I don't think State played bad, though. I mean, they played a good first half.
Yeah, but not being able to run really, 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 really hurt. That's, you can't.
And be honest with you, they didn't allow that last touchdown in the first half.
Right.
I mean, they were up 10-6. If they had stopped that would have made a world of difference for State.
Yeah, just not quite. They're just not quite there yet.
Got a good coach though. Doran's
I believe he's a great coach. If they could win the recruiting battles in North Carolina, which is always odd, Chapel Hill recruits better than State does, but yet the player turnout is just the opposite. So,
well, that's the big thing is if you got to recruit players that can be developed.
Yeah,
and I think sometimes these 4-star players out of high school they've already reached close to their ceiling anyway, and they
That's
can't
possible.
develop.
Yep.
And sometimes you get a 3-star, and they'll end up having a much better year than a much better career than a 4-star.
Right.
It's all about the floors and the ceilings,
Exactly. The floor and the ceiling. That's right. So hopefully, you're getting kids that have high ceilings.
Exactly right.
Yeah, not near their ceiling.
Well, I won't be
Exactly.
going to a football game on Friday. I'm going to I'm helping host a bingo night for our radio station. You'll love our caller. The call name for the radio station is WHUP. It's Whoop. It's an FM radio station in town. So,
He says there, Drake May's a good quarterback.
oh
Drake
yeah,
is probably he's one of the best I've seen play in high school. Maybe the best. I don't. This is hard. It's hard judgment, but Drake was the most refined high school quarterback. I don't know. You got several factors you can rate quarterbacks on: athleticism, abilities to read and understand the game, and to make certain throws. And one of the things that Drake could do in high school that was not consistent with, say, other high school quarterbacks was back shoulder throws. Um, Drake was really, really good at that. So Drake was good at ball placement.
now did
And
Drake have to scramble at all when he was
a little
playing at Miles
bit,
Park?
but and he could. He's athletic. Um, he's
Because
more
he's still
athletic
decent.
than you might think he is.
Yeah.
Um, he did have to scramble some, but not a lot. He Drake was blessed with receivers. He could throw it to their back shoulder and they could catch it. That's another thing. He had great receivers, and he had a big line. He had big boys that could block, and they ran good schemes. Um, but at the end of the day, his dad was a parade All-American. I don't know if you knew that, but
Oh, Mark May. Yeah.
yeah, he was a parade All-American when he was in high school. He and Chip Ferguson were on the team together at Independence,
Well,
and one of
Mark
them had
May graduated high school, or excuse me, graduated college with my sister,
uh,
and Sharon, my sister, lived in Eringhouse for 3 years,
well, Chip
and which
Ferguson played at Florida State.
Florida State was a better program then. It's been a better program in Carolina, probably the last 40 years, probably 34, 35 years.
Right,
That's a good program right there.
it is a good program. So having a dad like Mark May, um, there's
It's an advantage.
athleticism in that family, but to be able to be taught to play quarterback by Mark May is pretty special. So
How
yeah,
tall is he? About 6'5".
Drake. I don't know his actual measurable, but he's probably that much taller than me. So probably about that puts him in the 6'4" range. In high school, he was somewhere between 6'2" and 6'4".
They got him listed as 6'4".
Yeah, that's okay. That sounds right. I'm thinking he's 6'4". And he's a perfect size for a quarterback.
Right.
Sure, you could be taller and play, but he's not undersized, so he can at least see over the line in most instances. When he's backed up, hopefully he's got enough gap between him and the lineman that he'll be able to see over them. He's not having to look over those 6'5", 6'7" linemen. Um, and I liked him as a high school player, and I respect him as a college player.
You know, the most fun high school football player I've ever watched would probably be Javante Williams over Wallace Rose Hill,
Uh-huh.
and he just ended up tearing his ACL this last weekend. But
You
he
know, we
is
were
a
talking
good football.
when we were back earlier and with the rankings, and Rose was, sitting there in the middle of the pack, and I was talking about, those fond memories, and one of the most dominating players in a high school game that I saw was Andre Brown play for Rose
Right.
as a running back. He was like a giant among babies. Um, I've seen a lot of good performances. It's hard to pick, single Hollywood. It's a shame we did not get a chance to see that kid play this year. Um, when Chambers, then Vance, played Myers Park in the regional finals, he had I've got the video, and I've never seen a kid make a back step move like he made as a running back. And he made a total of 4 people miss on that play, making athletic moves like I've not seen ever, especially from a running back. He was special to watch in high school.
Now, I've seen Samir White from Scotland. Now he's over
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
University of
saw
Georgia.
him play. Yeah.
I still take Savante over him. I saw Todd Gurley at Tarboro.
See, Todd Gurley, I really, really liked Todd Gurley. And
Yeah,
in that Shrine Bowl, so one of the kids that played at Olympic that I nicknamed the Great White Shark, he played linebacker, and he went up to Hampton and started 4 years up there. And we talked about Gurley, and he said Gurley really opened his eyes to what a running back can be. Uh, working with Gurley that week in practice, and then the way he played in the Shrine Bowl,
right,
um, kid was a phenomenal, I think, running back in high school. I really
right.
liked Gurley. Yeah,
You know,
Zamir
if
White. Yeah,
you
go
talk
ahead.
to those three running back coaches, the coaches of those three running backs, one thing all three of them will say a common thing: they're very coachable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that people need to understand. So the players are coming up. If you want to go to that next level, you got to be willing to be coached, and that's something that a lot of these players, I think you'll see players with better talents that'll fizzle because they can't be coached.
Yeah, the tough thing I think for a player when they get to college is if they've got too many bad habits that can't be easily coached out, and thus they're not, and part of it being because they're not coachable, can really kill them. Because in college, all the guys that are on the team with scholarship, you might have been a 4-star or 5-star, but trust me, that guy that's behind you, he may not have been, but he ain't far from you. You're not
Right,
playing at a Power Five school for nothing. So yeah, you might lose a little bit when you go to another player, but the gaps are not that big that if you're not ready to, if you cannot be molded in college, and if you need too much molding because you had too many bad habits, they may not be able to spend the time on you.
right.
So yeah, I agree on the coachability part. That's very important.
Well, Dale, I think it's probably close to my bedtime, so I better go on to sleep
Yep,
here. But it
I'm
is
with
great
you.
chatting with you always.
Yeah, enjoyed it, and I looks like everybody else is finished with their comments. I hadn't seen a comment come up in a while, so let me know what's going on. If anybody, I see another player come in, another comment come in, so I may stay on another minute or two, people.
Okay. Well,
Um,
Dale, you take care of yourself. I'll catch up with you next Wednesday.
okay, Jim, talk to you.
All right. See you now.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I see Shelby has some tough players. Shelby got a lot of tough players, I think. Good program. We're down to 4 viewers. Anybody else got any other comments? See if I missed anything. I'm gonna scroll back here. It's kind of rough getting going this evening. I'm looking to see if there's any other comments we didn't address. If anybody has any other comments they want to throw in or something you want to share, I'll speak it out for you. If not, I'm gonna roll. I see. So this Mario Clark had commented in the "Make You Mad" rankings, and I see here he made a comment when Jim mentioned Chase and Shelby playing at the end of the year. Um, we got that corrected pretty much right away. The Panthers need a lot of help. I hate to say it, but I've given up on them. I don't watch the NFL as much now. It's kind of hard to watch when your team is not doing well. Now, my original team, because Panthers weren't always here, my original team was the Dolphins. So they're doing okay. So I do have a team to fall back on, but having pulled for the Panthers for so many years and not pulling for the Dolphins any longer as my number one, um, makes it a little difficult to fall back. So I don't know. I don't expect much out of this season with the Panthers. I think it's already lost, to be quite honest with you. But we'll see. I don't think they can make any turn. I don't think they can make a turnaround to the season. There just seems to be too big of a gap between where they are and where you'd like for them to be. The gap is too large. So if I'm going to be pulling for anybody this year, it's going to be the Dolphins. Have to be the Dolphins. I expect the Panthers. If Panthers win one more game this season, I'm going to be surprised. That'll be a shock. My green screen must be catching on the edge here. Looks like it is. I can pull my curtain a little bit over. I will. I'm going to go ahead and head off. Thanks everybody for stopping in, and check us out on our Facebook page. Any comments? We'll have new rankings up Monday. I'm trying to do a little bit more with these power rankings and the RPI stuff to give us a little bit better look at why teams might be where they are. Max Press power rankings are not, their algorithm is not great, but it's the only thing that we have that doesn't have a human decide who might be better than who, because that's hard to do at a pro level. It's hard to do at a college level in many situations. It's near impossible to do at a high school level. Uh, Bob, thank you for giving us time and sharing with us your thoughts. I do agree with your assessment of the game with South Point and Kings Mountain and the score. Uh, 20 is an interesting one. If they miss a field goal, I mean, miss a PAT, or do they get two field goals? But I was thinking a one score game. I've been thinking a one score game all along. And I did pick them in my observer picks this week. So that was my thought, but I'm not going to be surprised if South Point finds a way to win, but I think they're going to have to really play well and hope for some Kings Mountain mistakes, because Kings Mountain's defense, oh my gosh, really a good defense. But I'm looking for a great environment with some great football, kind of stuff we don't get to see here in Charlotte too much. So I enjoy it when I go out to places like Cleveland County and watch some of the best football we have in the state. That's a lot of makes me feel good inside to be able to see that kind of stuff. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you